Truthsonians. So welcome to my Sunday, March 16th, 2025 at 9:42 a.m. DMV Standard Time. I wanted to pop on here real quick to talk about first the love letter writing season, the emancipatory journaling season that begins April 1st. Now, this is something that I have been privately doing since 2020. And I have full-blown journals of love letters that I have written to my younger self, my older self, my present self, my children, my mom, who is no longer in this realm, my grandmothers, both of them have transcended this realm, my granddads, my great uncle. So I've always had a thing for diaries and love letters, especially handwritten ones. And anyone who knows me personally knows that I am not technologically savvy when it comes to uh, modes of communication. And I've always been a lover of letters. There was a time I want to say, in the not too far distant uh, history, for the lack of a better term. I'll say our story, but it seems like it wasn't really my kinfolk who was determined to invest in penmanship, to be pen pals, or to craft letters and send them overseas, or had them be uh, the the aspects that justify the Pony Express. But there was a time when to be a man or a woman of letters, it was a professional designation to be someone that crafted and wrote letters. They wrote letters for themselves and they wrote letters for others. That has always been a very intriguing way of life for me because of the effort I know it takes to craft a well written letter. Even to just be able to express yourself without rambling. And that's one of my things. I have this thing. Once the pen starts pouring out to the page, I'll look up and I have 8 pages. Go back and read it and wasn't really saying anything. Or maybe I just figure, because I am such a deep critic of my own expression, if maybe I was saying something. But this is what I do know. The head, heart, hand coordinations that comes with first-hand writing, that comes with one's ability to longhand communicate, is therapeutic. It is the ways that I am in communion with self. It has been the foundation and the landscape to how I know thyself. Now, this is not a practice for everyone, but those that are interested, and it's not anything that you have to sign up for. The devotion is with oneself. The devotion is, if I was to equate it to being on a date. And it's always quite intriguing at how mainstream loves to shove down our throats these dates with other people, these conversations with other people. And it still does no justice to the alignment to oneself. Why is it such a social stigma for someone to hold conversation or be in Congress with oneself to become affirmed in what one thinks of itself. How can we ever begin to talk about the collective if we are not speaking about the individual puzzle pieces that make up this greater, this grander landscape called life? How in the world do we continue to focus on the fruit and completely escape the roots? How are we doing this? How are we expecting healing, inner healing, intrapersonal healing to take place when the popular opinion is to always be grouped up, to always be in somebody else's face, to always figure like success is having a whole bunch of people around you, while we slowly but surely neglect that intimate brokenness that can only be healed through one's attention upon itself. And I am a firm believer, and you can't heal it if you don't feel it. Like India Ari always says, you know the truth by the way that it feels. And yet and still, we live in this red pill dynamic that says logic is the leader. Now, I believe in balance. I honestly, truly, sincerely do not believe dominance ought to reign supreme from one end to the other end of the spectrum. I believe in harmony and synthesizing and serendipitous frequency and loosen up the reins. And I honestly believe that there is no ownership of people, period. So to be able to realign inside of this springtime with oneself, I figured the better way to do it is to craft love letters, regardless of who they are going to. But I personally believe that the beginning of this natural year, which always begins with Aries, which always begins with springtime, is to write to oneself, speak to oneself, be in union with oneself. So I'll close with this real quick. I've been contemplating the metaphors of the Titanic, the historical details and effects, the unfolding of reality around the cruise liner, the Titanic, because that was marketed, that was propagandized as an unsinkable ship. And we saw how that turned out. So, this thing that something is written in stone, this thing that says that it is impossible or unchangeable, or because it's been planned, it's irrevocable, because it's been signed into legislation, that somehow it is that is the end all be all, and that the things that one can focus on or apply its attention to is mute. And I do truly believe that it all begins with self. I believe that once one gets clear with oneself, everything else ebbs and flows as it should. Success, in my opinion, is not granted by or gauged by material gains. I know very successful people that don't have a dime to their name. And how do I gauge that? Because they are satisfied in doing what it is that they feel they've come here to do. And I'm going to continue to say everybody is not geared to make money. Everyone is not geared to hustle and get the bag or be the stellar worker. Or, yeah, everyone has their own individuation, phase lines that they must endure. And always remember what comes up got to come back down. Back to the roots, back to the soil, back to that which replenishes and enrich. So, yeah, until next time, I wish you well.